Be Inspired TV. Everything in life can be taught, and it's possible that you can be at the level you aspire to be in life. Join your host, Pastors Lenny and Nancy Tarengwa, as they take us through inspired life success tips.
Pastor Nancy, I think in conclusion, what can you say to the young couples that are, getting into marriages now?
Well, what I can say is love is a very beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
More to say, even worse when we're talking about marriage, but it takes maturity like we learned today. It takes a lot of patience. It takes the whole of you giving yourself, being willing to learn, being willing to be stretched, being willing to give things to be squeezed out of you, like Pastor Nomsa mentioned. But at the end of the day, love is very beautiful.
Pastor Noms, you've got elderly people in your church. And how are you, being a young pastor, how are you handling situations when they bring situations to you as a young pastor and they're old? How are you managing to, to put them together and counsel them and, as a leader, how are you doing it?
Wow, that's a tricky one. But all I can say is, yes, the concerning age, concerning body-wise, people always disrespect. People always judge you. But taking it on my side, I just leave it to God. I do not have all the answers that people need. But when I leave it to God, yes, God can just make a way known through me. Mm-hmm. So I allow God to work a solution for someone through me. If I don't know it, I'll go in my closet, ask God, what can I say to this person? Yes, elderly people can be there. They can judge you, you are just a young lady. You got into marriage like 7 years ago. What can you tell me? Mm-hmm. I've been married for 40 years. But not knowing, times they change. And now God speaks to young people. God speaks to everyone. If you allow him, he can speak to you. So if he has spoken to me to give you an answer, it's just up to you to give me the room. So all I can say to them that are out there, the elderly people, doesn't mean if I'm young, I do not have a solution or an answer to your problem. I can have it directly from God. That now depends. To take it now depends on you. You want to take it looking at my age, or you see God in me.
Wow, this is interesting. As I've been noticing some trends, especially the age that we are living these days, where there's a mushrooming of churches every corner, everywhere, and we are seeing not elderly people are starting churches, but only young couples, young people are starting churches, and most of the reasons why people are starting churches, one of them is people are just there in for money. They've seen someone making money, and they just feel I can also make money. I've failed at school. I don't have a job. I can't earn a living. The only way I can do is to just start a church. And looking at you as pastors, what encouragement, Pastor Rwodzi, can you give to the so-called man of God, or the people that are really called, but they are young and they are in ministry? What word can you give them? Because right now we have got a serious problems where people are starting churches not because God called them, but they're just starting churches and they've got nothing to do. So what encouragement can you give the people, even those who are called, but still they are finding it tough to run or to maintain ministries? How do you, as a pastor, how are you doing it? And also what encouragement do you give to these young pastors?
Ministry is never easy. Ministry is not easy. I think it's for the tough, if I can say that. But above all, the Spirit of the Lord guides us. And the biggest challenge that we are having in this day and age is the generational gaps. The older generation feels that everything that the younger generation is doing is wrong. So by that, they don't support, they don't help, they condemn. And the younger generation feels the old is worn out. They cannot, So I think when we get to a point whereby we are able to understand each other and cover the gap and know that we are serving the same God, we will make it. And if you're a young minister and you really know why you are called, you really know what God has instructed you to do, it takes boldness, just like he said to Joshua, Joshua chapter 1. He said, Joshua, I want you to be strong and be courageous so that you may make your ways prosperous. So the only way we are going to be prosperous, the only way we are going to make it in ministry is when we gather the courage that we need for the journey, because the journey is not easy. He said, Elijah, wake up, eat, for the journey ahead of you is great. So the journey ahead of us is very important. We need to gather as much knowledge and wisdom as we can. If you can connect with someone that has walked the journey, the better. They will help you and they will guide you. And never look down upon anyone that has walked this journey. They know better. And at the same time, if you are young, be bold. Do not seek validation. Do not seek approval. Because that will only slow you down. That will only discourage you, because you are asking someone to answer you things that God has spoken to you in their absence. So when you have God to assure you, then you are okay. But you can get wisdom and knowledge to do it from people, but not the approval that, yes, you are called. No, you are not called. That will discourage you, and you will not make it in ministry that way.
All right, but I think you're talking more of the ministry side, where you need to encourage people to say, know your call, know that God is the one who called you. So whatever you are doing, make sure God is in it. But the challenge that I'm having is, how does a young minister now survive? What encouragement do you give to young ministers? Because what I'm seeing, I'm also a young minister, I'm also in ministry, but me and my wife, we're in business. We do business. We earn our living from using our hands. And when we go to church, we're going there to preach the pure gospel of Jesus Christ. And there are ministers now who are not like privileged as we are to do business and do ministry. So some, they're only doing ministry. How are they surviving? Maybe let's not ask for on behalf of other people. You as a couple, how are you balancing the ministry and your survival? How are you surviving as pastors?
Okay. Professionally, I'm an artist. I'm a two-dimensional visual artist. And at the same time, ministry is a baby. There's a time when you feed your babies. And then there's a time when they are able to feed themselves. As they grow, they'll feed you back. So I think we should try by all means to understand the stages of ministry. There's a time when you have to feed the ministry. Then there's a time. Personally, I also do some other stuff. We live in Kadoma, and it's the city of the Yellowstone. So we try to run around and give back to ministry and try to make the two ends meet.
So as a pastor, is it a good thing to do business and to be a pastor, or you just stick to be a pastor and,
If you stick to ministry alone, unaona bitterness.
How? Shed more light on that one.
Because there's a time when ministry cannot feed you. Yeah. And during that time, you will strain yourself. And you might lose the pure gospel. You might lose that pure thing that you'll be carrying. You might contaminate the anointing, because you try to force people to give you. You try to force the money out of people. And your gospel might actually derail, because you are pushing people. You see, there's a time whereby people will come willingly and after teaching and things like that, but it's a process. So during the process, you need to be doing something by the side. I think it is very wise to be doing business and ministry at the same time, because if you want to keep the gospel pure, because when you preach out of a bitter spirit, you will contaminate the whole congregation. So if you can do business, if you find something to do it, push. And when you come to church, it's pure gospel. You give them time to grow, give them time to understand what you're saying, and they will come and give. You see, rather than forcing them, I want it now because you've got bills to pay. But when you give it time, you would preach the true revelation, the true gospel from above.
Wow, you have heard it for yourself. As a young minister, you must also use your hands to work. And, as pastors, we are not called to be burdens to the people that we lead. We are actually apostles in the marketplace, where God uses us as a template. God blesses us, and we become a blessing to the people that we lead, not the other way. You know, the reason why the gospel is difficult to preach these days is this kind of thing where a church is starting there, a church is starting there, which is a good thing. But now the motives and the reasons why the churches are starting, a lot of them will end up diluting the sole reason why people should come to Jesus. You know, they are coming to be put yokes, yet Jesus said, if you come to me, give me your yoke so that your burdens becomes lighter, you know. So as young pastors, we have learned something today, especially on the family side. How do we balance the family and the ministry? And also we have helped young ministers to say, you have to work. You know, we don't need to put burdens on the people that we lead. And that leads us to the end of this episode of Be Inspired. And I hope and I believe that the Lord has used this episode to heal your marriages, also to help you as a minister of the Word of God, to know that God raised you to be a leader, not to put burden upon people's lives, but to bring people to Christ and showcase the world that you are blessed by God. See you on the next episode. May God bless you.
The Lord expects us to be creative, innovative, and empowering. To achieve this, join Pastor Lenny on the next episode of Be Inspired as he gives us some more life success tips. Thank you all for listening to this episode of Be Inspired. I hope you have been inspired by today's program, and I also hope you will put to act and practice everything that we have discussed today. Let's meet again next time as Pastor Lenny gives us more success tips.